I think the central to what we are speaking about here is the clampdown on freedom of movement that I don't think up until now we might have considered to be this essential to people's lives as we do now, because I think the way in which it's always been thought about has been just for leisure, basically being able to go to a restaurant, being able to go out with your friends, being able to travel, you know, those kinds of things. But I think we see now that the right to freedom of movement is actually something that has the potential to make or break people's lives. And in this case, particularly vulnerable people such as LGBTI people. And I think over, if you watch the news, especially even in international news, I think it's in France that I heard recently, whereby the problem with domestic violence just for women has, besides South Africa, has skyrocketed through the roof. And it's also the fact that people can now not access support services that they previously could. You can't run to the neighbor, you can't go to, you know, your mom or a friend, or you can't go to a help center or a shelter. So these are things that are very relevant for LGBTI people too. And I think this idea of being locked down is something that I think we've been speaking about for a very long time. Even with the freedom to move and access to the right to freedom of movement, LGBTI people have generally found themselves in societies that lock them down anyway, because we haven't been able to access these rights equally. It's one thing to be able to move freely, but when for you moving freely means that you might meet harm, you might actually meet your death, because the way in which society is set up is that people want to remove you from that society. So for many LGBTI people, they haven't actually accessed the right to move freely because it's dangerous for them. And I think the situation that we find ourselves in now begs many questions of us. And one of those questions that have previously, I'm pretty sure have previously been asked, and repeatedly so, but that maybe now be rooted in more concrete evidence. Because I think one of the things, especially with LGBTI activism, is that one has to keep on providing evidence for an experience. And because the people that you are presenting this to don't experience your lived reality, they cannot fathom the evidence that you are providing just based on the fact that you are saying, but this is my life. Yeah. So now I think we're getting to a place whereby the evidence for what we're talking about is very, very plain to see, and other people are now also experiencing that. And so one of the questions that I think this begs of us is to ask, what value do the rights and civil liberties that we have, what value do those rights have if everybody cannot access them equally? And what then now do we need to do to make sure that that actually happens and isn't just a case of theoretical access to freedom and rights?